Welcome everyone. I'm Harish Gottipati. I'm working as a freelancer, working on CRM Analytics, Salesforce implement. Can you restart the recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Thanks everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining the session. This session is more about CRM Analytics and how it can help transform your business. Firstly, I want to be briefly, I'm Harish Gottipati, I'm a freelancer based in the UK, most importantly within financial services. I'm also working within financial services and other segments of business. Mostly as an implementation architect, data architect, working on Salesforce customizations and using data analytics and other data lakes like Snowflake, etc. The most interesting thing I've been doing recently is enterprise architecture. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard about TOGAF or Zachman. So those are the frameworks for enterprise architecture. I'm taking the gist of those two frameworks and trying to implement and use those frameworks within Salesforce implementations. It's quite interesting, it's quite tiresome too. So yeah, that's in brief about me. So as most of the guys are not from financial services, unfortunately, so I had to strip down the presentation and take off all the financial services content. So it's more about, in a generic manner, hope it's compatible to everyone's needs. So basically, what is CRM Analytics? It's the latest and greatest CRM Analytics tool from Salesforce. And the previous names to it is Wave, Einstein, TCRM. TCRM stands for Tableau CRM, but the latest name is called CRM Analytics. Hopefully, the name wouldn't change further. It remains as is. The fun fact, it's also a relational database behind the scenes. It's a separate database within the Salesforce. Salesforce provides a skin on the top, as if like everything is one system, but it's a relation database. So whatever we do, it queries the database within the database. Unfortunately, a licensing fee is incurred. It's not free of cost. It's as expensive as a Salesforce license. Not everyone can afford it. I hope Salesforce would bring the cost down, or you can negotiate with your account manager. Also, a fun fact again, it runs on ETL model, extract, load, and transform. I'm sure most of you Salesforce geeks know what ETL is, so that I don't have to explain it further. A lift and shift of Tableau features. So I'm not sure how many of you are working on Tableau as a product, as a standalone Tableau, and most of the features are coming over from Tableau standards into CRM Analytics. I'll show some of them as in data sets. The naming conventions are already being transferred. I'm expecting more and more transition in the upcoming releases. It's also not just the analytics part, it also does predictive analysis, discovery, and nurturing, and number crunching, etc. So if you have a data set, you can select a couple of fields, and you can tell the system to give a score on the behavior of the fields from time to time based on the field updates. So if the field is updated today, tomorrow, and day after, the system can give you some numbers and analytics and tell you how frequently a particular field is changing and why it's changing, and etc. So it's a proper BI tool. So it's a quick glimpse of how the architecture is. The top bit is the applications, as you can see. Then is the development platform. The AI platform services sits exactly in between the Einstein. So sorry, it still has the previous naming convention. So you can see the predictive analysis, machine and deep learning, etc., which is sitting in between exactly to cover all parts of Salesforce ecosystem to bring everything together. So why CRM Analytics? Why should I use it? Because I have 10 reasons. Hopefully, some of them does make sense. So the main selling point for me personally, based on my experience, is you don't have to create records. It can bring in data from various sources, bring it into CRM Analytics. That means we don't have a system performance issue here. There are no downstream impacts. It just brings the data straight away. And also, it's quite robust. You can change the process whenever you need. For example, if you have REST or SOAP integrations, it's quite a tedious process, looking into web services or engaging with a developer. But this is quite different approach, bringing all the data together without creating any records. Also, it also works as a self-service. So if you go into dashboard, any of the CRM Analytics dashboards, the user can click on any of the URL of the contact ID and that takes straightly into Salesforce. Also, you can create custom actions where, like a list views, you can select a couple of records, you can update them as needed with a checkbox or a value. Also, it brings up all the teams together under one roof, like sales or marketing, whatever teams you have as a one-stop shop. Because I see most of the organizations are using Salesforce, but when it comes to analytics, because of the limitations, they're using Power BI or Tableau or any other products which are on the market, like ClickView, ClickSense, etc. But we don't have to do this when it comes to CRM Analytics. It's pretty much a live and breathe within one ecosystem, and everything drives from Salesforce. It caters all the business needs. Mostly, one more winning point for me is the mobile and tablets modes. So for example, we have a guy called Michael Jones, or whoever it is, who is based in somewhere geographically, who is making 42 million a year on various products for a firm, and we want to see the data on the record. So simple as that, you can go to the records, say for example a contact, edit the contact, bring in the dashboard components, filter it based on the ID, on the contact ID, and everything shows and renders neat and nice as an iframe. It also renders very precisely and very neatly and cleanly on a mobile and tablet interface. There are other tools which renders too, but CRM Analytics comes to a different level because of the rendering and how the data is shown, how it is visualized in a bigger view. It's definitely up to the mark. The next one. So connections to various external sources. So these are the various connections you can establish to various external systems. So starting from MuleSoft connections, live connections, and standard connections. So the difference between live and standard connections. Live is a live stream of data coming from various external sources into Salesforce. But unfortunately, you can't amend them because it's a live data. Only 2 products are supported as we speak on the live connections. One, Snowflake, other is Google BigQuery. These are only 2 which are supported for live connections. What you can do, use that live connections data set as a standalone on the dashboard. Unfortunately, we can't mix and match or create other data sets using that particular data set because it's a live data set. Standard data sets, standard connection is a query-based connection. You establish the connection, bring in the data, connect the objects, connect the fields, run the query based on the times as you need it. So you can query the data within the query. So you can also connect to various other CRM platforms like HubSpot. HubSpot is a small and medium CRM, which supports small and medium enterprises, another CRM. They call it as free. There are some limitations. Also Snowflake, Tableau, and Salesforce external connectors and Azure are the most frequently used connections. The data is about 3 months old, so might have changed recently, but as far as I'm aware, Snowflake, Tableau, Salesforce external connector, which is Salesforce to Salesforce, and Azure are the frequently used connections. As I alluded, Snowflake is the only data. Snowflake and Google BigQuery are the only connections which are supported for the live connections. So just as an FYI. So that's where we are. The next bit. As most of you guys use Salesforce, reports and dashboards, I'll do a quick comparison. How does that look between Salesforce standard reports and dashboards versus CRM Analytics? It says app on the top. App is the actual folder in reports and dashboards. That is called app. Also data sets. How many of you created report types in Salesforce? Correct. So report types are data sets. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, in fact, fortunately, in CRM Analytics, you have to create the data sets to get through the data. It's a proper way of creating BI reporting tool, reporting suite. So you create the data sets, and then you nurture and see the data. Again, lens. Lens is the reports in Salesforce worlds. Then last bit is dashboard. Dashboard is dashboards. But we have many metrics on CRM Analytics dashboards with number of filters. You can use SQL. SQL is Salesforce Analytics query language. You can also switch to SQL. I'm going to show how it is. You can tell your business intelligence guy, if he doesn't know SQL, you can tell, hey, you can query it in SQL and bring the data in. Queries in SQL and bring the data in. So that's in a nutshell, that's how the key terms are. A comparison between Salesforce standard reports and dashboards versus CRM Analytics. So how do I start? Harish, you told me loads of things. Where do I start? Where do I start with CRM Analytics? So most of the CRM Analytics, most of the customers or any of the businesses using CRM Analytics are mainly, the main purpose for them is to bring in the external connections, external data from the external connections. It may be Snowflake, it could be Azure, it could be AWS, or whatever the connections I showed before. So the main bit is to get the external connections. The next bit is to connect the objects. Remember, all the standard Salesforce objects are already connected. Any custom objects you create, you must manually establish a connection, and I'm going to show that too. When you connect the objects, some of the fields are not available. They're grayed out because those fields doesn't have the field level security on the analytics user profile. So what you have to do, you go to the objects, go to the user profile, go to the objects, select the fields, save it, wait for a few minutes, then go back to the connection, then re-establish pull up the object, select the fields, then you are able to see all of those fields. Else you can't see them. Also, there are object limitations, so that there are 100 connections you can establish. Whatever they are, they could be external, internal, everything on the first instance. If you need more connections, you need to reach out to contact sales support. They're going to increase those. As of now, and per my understanding, it's still free up to as many as you want. I'm not sure if there will be some new limitation in the future, but 100 are the default ones. If you need more, you have to contact the supports. Also, there are row limitations. So we have Excel file, right? We have rows and columns. When it comes to rows, we have an Excel limitation of 1 million or something. Similarly, there are row limitations for Salesforce. There is a 24-hour cycle. Means every 24 hours, you can only run up to, I think, just over 1 million. One more thing, if you're creating data sets using CSV, you have 1 million records, first 1 million records in your CSV, and you have a 500 extra on the top, on the below, which doesn't have any values, but those will be considered within the row limits. Salesforce CSV is not recognized by Salesforce, by CRM Analytics, by looking them as a blank value. They still consider it. So if you have a blank value, but if you have a space in it, the null is not considered. It still considers as a row limitation, as a row count. So please make sure you format a CSV when you upload it. And also types of creating data sets. You can create various ways. So firstly, just to recap everything, we have external connections, we bring in the data, we have standard Salesforce objects, we connect them, we run them, then we have to create data sets. That means in standard Salesforce, we have objects. We have reports. When we create the objects, you can see the tick box at the bottom. Hey, use this in reports. So similarly, we can see all of those in the reporting suite in standard Salesforce. But here, we have to tell the system. So go to the data set, create the data sets. There are a couple of ways to create data sets. One is CSV. You can upload a CSV file. Say you get some very confidential financial market data from your finance team or legal team or compliance, upload the CSV, unlock it only for the particular users. You can create data sets using data sets. So you have 2 or 3 data sets, you can mix and match them and create another new data set. Remember, creating the data sets within the data sets is only applicable for standard connections, not for live connection related data sets. So once the data set is created, view it in Lens, view it in the report, make sure your data is right. Don't jump onto the dashboard straight away and start creating all of those components. It's never going to work. you're going to reframe and rework everything from the scratch. Make sure your objects are neatly connected. If you have a really big data set, say with 10 to 15 objects, don't connect all of them together. Start with 2 main objects from, say, with the basic left join. See the outputs, check the lens, make sure the data is right, then connect one more. That's how a real business intelligence BI person would do, a BI developer. So change your hats, think like that, and connect those objects meticulously from one to another, neatly to grab your data. Make sure all your rows are not multiplicated. Sometimes if you do the left join, everything comes through, which is sitting to the left. You may want to use lookup. Make sure, do your digging, create a standard Salesforce, create standard Salesforce reports, create 3 reports, make sure where the data is appearing, and replicate it in the data sets on your recipe to create and bring those objects. Also, you can download the dashboard data. You can subscribe the dashboard data. Also, if you want to do the dashboards or any of these from environment to environments, you don't have to recreate all of those. You can just download the JSON and you can re-upload it. I'm going to show that too. This is the quick system walkthrough how it is. So anything, when it comes to analytics, is the vision, is the mindset, which is quite important. So think about it. I'm going to end the show and I'm going to quickly go to the system. So, here is the standard Salesforce. So once the Einstein Analytics, they still say Einstein in setup. Unfortunately, hopefully that changes. It still says, so once it's enabled, you can see Analytics Studio in the app, from the app launcher. There you go, you get launched into Analytics Studio. You can see various things. This is your pretty much bread and butter. Go to browser, go to browse. You can see all your apps, dashboards. How many of you use Pardot? Great. So you can connect Pardot too. You can have multiple business units and bring in the data using the Pardot business unit ID. So you can create standard dashboards from Salesforce. You can export the JSON and edit it and tweak as needed. Does your Pardot instance connected to Preference Center?
I don't know. We just use it just to send emailing. We're just doing emailing at the moment.
Correct.
So
you can do a lot of lead nurturing, and yeah, we can talk about if you have further interest. We can definitely talk.
okay.
So this is where the browse shows where you can see all the apps, related dashboards, components, lens, data sets, and etc. The main bit is the data manager. 90% of our work in CRM Analytics, creating everything, you live and breathe in data sets. So this is the connect object, you go straight. This is the connect object, you go straight. So you go to the connect, so these are the standard objects. It's already established. So you connect to data. You go to the SFDC local, that is your actual Salesforce. Say you want to go to assets, continue. You select these fields as you need it. If any of these are grayed out, that means the field level security is not there. So you continue and you save it. It grays out and appears here. You just run them, run data sync, and it runs and brings in all the data. Also natively, as I showed, you can establish all of these external connections. Per my thirds charts. You can establish all of these. Also, the types of data sets. As I alluded, you can create via CSV, external data, the connections which I just showed, data sets using data sets within the data sets, and also Salesforce data. This is the main recipe. You can create data set using your recipes. So you can bring in all the objects as you need it. You can add more and more objects using the input data here. If you think, if you would like to export, and if you would like to redo this in different environments, you can download the JSON here and just upload it onto a different environment, and it just runs. You can join it. You can do various other other types, left join, right join, inner join. You can do a lot. You can also transform. Transform is your Excel, literally Excel. So you can do all the coil checks, you can do all the functions, you can do drop of the columns, you can split the columns, you can do the bucketing, you can do various forms using transform. So this is your data set after creating it. So you can explore the data using your lens, which is your report actually in Salesforce. This is your data set, this is your lens. You can go to the query modes if you're an expert, like if you want to go through an expert modes, or you can go to switch to SQL if you have a BI developer who is good with SQL but doesn't know Salesforce Analytics, and you can query in SQL. You can use this data set in any of the dashboards. Say these are the dashboards. All those data sets appear here on the right-hand side. If you want to add the dashboard into a new environment, from your test, you control edit, you copy this and paste it onto new dashboards on any new environments and save it, it should run. Make sure all your data sets are there already and make sure you use the same data set ID in those dashboards. So that's a quick glimpse of how it looks like. Just to end the presentation, to justify the title, this is an architectural picture of an environment of any firm. It could be a financial institution, it could be any firm. How complex it can be. So mostly what it is doing is creating records in Salesforce. The primary purpose, see everything is routing to Salesforce, going back and forth, is to update the records and create the records. So it also has couple of integrations, so a couple of data lakes, Snowflake, Azure, Databricks, etc., and also 2 analytics engines, Power BI and Tableau. But with CRM Analytics, I'm not telling we can replace this exactly, but in a practical perspective, most of the scenarios, we can avoid that hardship with the complex architectural diagram using architectural stuff using CRM Analytics, because you don't have to create any records. You can just bring in the data. As I alluded in the start of the meeting, you don't have to create records. You can change the process. Know your data and bring it. If you don't know the data, that means probably you don't know the business, and the business doesn't know what they're doing. So know where the money is coming from the business. Talk to the business, sales, marketing, etc., and bring in the data. So to conclude, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a lot. Any questions? I shall wait outside because we're on the dot. We'll definitely answer the questions. Thank you very much.